That. There's another super chat here as we go into the Arsenal section that says, please tell me all three bad pieces of news from Samu McBell on Arsenal today are regular meltdown news before some good news. Yeah, and look, I'm sure you've seen his updates, and I'm sure you've had similar briefings and conversations, but Rodrigo doesn't look likely. It's been stated today by a number of sources that Eze to Arsenal right now seems dead in the water, for want of a better phrase. What's your latest understanding about Arsenal's end of the window transactions? Because their fans are desperate for more players.
Rodrigo was never really an Arsenal topic other than huge appreciation, and they like the player, but they don't like the price. So unless the price drops, I don't think anyone's going to develop on Rodrigo. And I come back to what I said before. 1 week it was Liverpool, 1 week it was Chelsea, 1 week it was Arsenal, 1 week it was Spurs. And during all of those reports, Rodrigo had never had a conversation with Xabi Alonso. My info is the conversation with Xabi Alonso only happened last weekend, and Rodrigo didn't hand in a transfer request and actually said he would be prepared to stay and fight for his place. Yet at the same time, you've got several agents in different regions with different club relationships, all with a non-exclusive mandate on the player side to try and do this deal. And that's why I think we're hearing a lot of push towards where he might go, because those agents are doing their job and they're asking clubs if they want to bid. But that doesn't mean Rodrigo's told anybody yet he wants to leave, and it doesn't mean he's held any direct talks. So Tottenham haven't made a bid, despite some reports in Spain. Again, full respect to other journos, happy to be proven wrong. But my info is Tottenham didn't place a bid. A lot of talk about Liverpool. And again, I'm told they've not had any player to club talks at this stage. And Arsenal's perspective, because Andrea Berta's a great reader of the market, has always been that a player like Rodrigo might prove too expensive when wages, fee, taxes, agent fees are all considered. So I don't think this has kind of been pulled away from Arsenal. I think they knew from the start it was expensive, and I'm not surprised, despite obvious appreciation for the player and clearly an internal discussion, but they're not moving. And as soon as Noni Madueke arrived, he can go on the left-hand side. So unless Leandro Trossard or Gabriel Martinelli leaves, Arsenal will be done on the left-hand side. If one of them goes, then keep an eye on that left side. You never know. They might surprise us late in the window. We know that they've looked in the past also at Anthony Gordon, for example. Malik Fofana hasn't gone anywhere yet. Arsenal, Liverpool, we know Everton as well. So there could be a twist there, but it needs an exit. And then the other reason with Rodrigo is they were looking first and foremost for a more central player, kind of like a number 10. And Eberechi Eze was seen as a 10. But now Ethan Nwaneri is set to sign his new deal. He can be used as a 10 and obviously might get more minutes there because of the fact that Noni Madueke is a right-sided winger and Bukayo Saka is at the football club too. So they have to decide if there's space for one more. Eze can't be discounted, but what's true is the release clause is gone and Crystal Palace are therefore in a stronger position. But Arsenal's plan has always been to come in under. So I think what's going to happen here is that Arsenal will still go to Palace. It wouldn't surprise me if they make a verbal offer lower than the release clause. It's either going to get shut down and they'll discreetly walk away and say it was never close to what we were prepared to pay. Palace were insisting on £68 million or more. Or alternatively, Palace would have to indicate that they are prepared to do a deal for Eze. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult, even though the player is open to Arsenal. And then let's see on Eze if Tottenham enter the race as well. There's clear appreciation from Tottenham. All signs are Eze wants Arsenal. And before James Maddison got injured, Spurs sources were adamant that we're not in for Eze. We appreciate him, we respect him, but we're not bidding. But Tottenham's big priority now is to find a number 10, an attacking midfielder, whatever you want to call it, an advanced 8. So they looked at Harvey Elliott, but they're not going to continue those talks. They've discussed Bilal Al-Khanous, who's got a 26 million euros relegation release clause. But Eze is probably the one that would really excite the Spurs fan base. I have no information to suggest they will move for Eze, but I can tell you internally there is that appreciation for him. But Eze could just stay at Crystal Palace, of course, because the other factor in all of this is Mark Gay could leave. Palace want to sell. Oliver Glasner said repeatedly, we've not had a good window. And when you've not had a good window, you become more staunch about trying to hold on to your best stars. So that's kind of where we're at with Eze. And I think Arsenal fans need to understand too that regardless of Eze, They've got Victor Gyökeres, the number 9 they've craved. They've got Noni Madueke. They've got Martin Zubimendi. They've got Christian Norgard. They've got Christian Mosquera, who I'm told is Premier League ready now. And Arsenal feel he's not just a backup or a young star for the future. He's ready to challenge. He's ready to get starts. You might even get, despite Arsenal's centre-back pairing being outstanding, a William Saliba situation. Remember, he came back from his loan spell originally at Arsenal and got chucked straight in. This Mosquera player is seen as the real deal by Arsenal, and they're very excited. And they got someone that was once the world's most expensive goalkeeper for just £5 million as a backup and competition to David Raya, who's one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. So when you look at Arsenal's window, just because they may not get Eze, although I don't think we should 100% rule it out still, it's been a very good window for Andrea Berta. After we got into July, he did a flurry of business early, and I still think Arsenal are looking in good shape as we head into the new season.
Arsenal fans, give us your thoughts, give us your feelings, give us your opinions on this. What do you want to see happen? Are you happy with that? Are you concerned? Are you worried? Could a good preseason game tomorrow afternoon change things? Let me know in the comments section below. Another super chat here says, I know we're right near the end, but for my Villa mates, any chance of a Villa signing?
Yeah, I mean, Evan Gessard is obviously coming in. I don't think it's been announced yet. Very exciting young striker. I think you can kind of call him the John Duran replacement, even though Duran went to Saudi and now on loan to Fenerbahce. But a young striker, very versatile, not linked to Ollie Watkins' future, by the way. Villa's perspective there, even though there's clear interest from clubs, is they prefer not to sell. They'd probably have to find another replacement, and they would stick to an asking price of in and around £60 million. So add all of that up with time running out in the window, and it's very difficult. There's still interest, of course, in Emi Martinez, who was kind of courting Man United, but he's well contracted. So that wave goodbye, seemingly at the end of the Premier League season, was maybe more driven by the player thinking he's going to get a move, but Villa have actually dug in. And as I reported many times, they needed to find about £70 million before the PSR deadline, maybe even as high as 75, in fact. And then they sold their women's team for 55 million to their parent company and a few other assets, like when Chelsea also sold the car parks and the hotels. So they're PSR compliant, which means that Villa can now move in the market. So I am expecting some more signings to come in. A left-sided attacker is one, maybe a number 9, depending on what happens with the future of Ollie Watkins, even though there's nothing advanced at this point. You have interest in John McGinn. Everton had tried earlier in the window. Newcastle as well a few days ago. Villa made it clear he's not for sale. Yuri Tielemans was on a Saudi radar, but a bid never came. So Villa predominantly have kept the spine that they were looking to. And barring any surprises, I think they'll also be relatively confident that they can keep hold of their players. But what they need to do effectively is fill the void left by the two loanies, Marco Asensio and Marcus Rashford. And that's why, in particular, with Rashford in mind, a left winger or a left-sided attacker still can't be discounted.
Thank you. And this final super chat, Ben says, Samu or Pavlidis with Wissa as a backup. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think Samu, I was always told after the whole Chelsea saga last summer, was actually very happy where he is now and is on fire. So I think that might be harder than people realize, because it was such a tough summer for him. When he thought he was at Chelsea, he did the medical at Chelsea, and then it fell through. And then suddenly it was Joao Felix and Conor Gallagher going the other way. So he went to Porto instead. And I think he scored 27 goals in all competitions, but he's only been there one season. So there is appreciation. But as far as I'm aware, the player is not agitating and is quite happy where he is, and time is starting to run out in the window. So I think Newcastle might, if they add a number 9, do Wissa. As I said before, Wissa's prioritising at the moment anyway, Premier League over Saudi Arabia, and Newcastle will be back. I think they need to be quick because Saudi are pushing to almost outbid and agree a fee. And at the same time, who's to say Tottenham don't come into the race knowing now James Maddison is injured? And who's to say Nottingham Forest don't bid again because they've not got Amari Hutchinson yet, and they haven't been able to secure James McAtee yet. So if Brentford's price drops, could they pivot back and make another bid for Johan Wissa? But the advantage for Newcastle there is they've got Champions League football and Nottingham Forest don't. So let's see how it develops. But at this stage, I think you're probably looking at Newcastle for Wissa, maybe Newcastle for Jackson. That's quite interesting because I think they both go and play AFCON. And that leaves a hole every time that tournament comes around. But you can't think of whether you do it or don't do it only on those kind of terms. So Newcastle are going to be busy. And I genuinely think that come the end of the window, we will have a different complexion on Newcastle's window. I know it's really easy at the moment to go, James Trafford went to Man City, Brian Mbeumo went to Man United, Mateus Cunha went to Man United, Benjamin Sesko went to Man United, João Pedro went to Chelsea, etc., etc., etc. But I'm sort of told by Newcastle sources that some of these sagas, particularly Cunha and Mbeumo, they knew very early. So they were not on the cusp of bidding or almost getting it done or agreeing a fee, but not having player buy-in. Many of these deals, they read the market and they walked away earlier. But of course, with João Pedro and Benjamin Sesko and James Trafford, they didn't. Aaron Ramsdale's come in. Anthony Elanga's a good signing. There will be one, if not two, attackers. And then even if Isaac leaves, I think Newcastle will be relatively happy with their window. It's clearly been difficult. They've clearly missed out on targets. But I think, as we say always, don't judge a window with a month left, because at the moment, whether you're missing out on a target, getting a target, celebrating a target, bemoaning a target, you're doing it without seeing a single game of football. And come the end of the window, that's when you know who you've actually got. That's when you know how your season has started. So personally, I'm reserving judgment on Newcastle because I think come the end of the window, there'll be a slightly different story to tell.
Absolutely. Listen, viewers, I want to say a big thank you.